What is going on, you guys? How are y'all doing? Hopefully you guys are doing well, and today we have a very special video, and we get to do a video with this really dope NSX. And today I actually have the owner here to talk about his car. But before we go for a ride, I'm gonna have him talk about his car and what's done to it. So guys, this is Nicholas. Nicholas, say what's up to the people.
Hey, what's up?
So talk about your car. How long have you had it and what's done to it and everything like that?
Sure. It's a 93 Acura NSX, so USDM. Mostly a lot of maintenance stuff. It's a 30-year-old car, so things like seals, all the electronics. So on old cars, 30-ish years old, a lot of the capacitors in the electronics start to leak.
Okay.
So you should have someone go through all that. So had all that done. As far as upgrades though, so the NSX originally came with kind of not a very great ABS system.
Okay.
And so this has been upgraded to an ABS out of an S2000.
Oh wow.
So you can upgrade to a version out of the 2002 to 2005 NSX, but it's a very expensive upgrade.
Right.
It's a little cheaper to go with the S2000 version, and the downside to the S2000 version is you lose traction control.
Really?
Yeah, you have to disable it.
Wow.
So
you just have to turn off the traction control button?
No, it's like permanently on.
Oh, permanently?
Yeah.
Wow.
But the ABS works a hell of a lot better than it used to. So that's been done. Replaced all kinds of stuff, like I said, the brake master cylinder, clutch master slave. The clutch that came on this was an Exity, but I switched over to a Science of Speed. They're a shop in Arizona that make their own clutches for the NSX. So I've got one of theirs and a light and flywheel.
Okay.
Let's see, I've got the Science of Speed intake scoop, so it's a little bit more of a forced air. Otherwise, I don't know, like I said, a lot of maintenance stuff. Just want this thing to run as best as I can. I try and do some of the work myself, but being that it's a higher end car, I send it to experts when I can. I have had Acura of Beaverton. There's a guy there, Chris, he's a NSX tech. He's worked on it. And then a really awesome guy up in Bellevue, Tam Tech.
Okay.
He installed the flywheel and the clutch. He rebuilt my axles because they were, after 30 years, the grease in the CV was just, it was like water. It was just so runny. So he rebuilt those, did a bunch of other stuff.
You were telling me off camera that actually NSX stands for something. So yeah. I don't know if a lot of people know that, but I didn't know that. So what does NSX stand for? So
it depends on which NSX you are looking at. So the original, like prototype, I guess you'd say, was NS-X.
Ah.
Okay. And that, if I remember right, new sports car X, meaning like unknown world, or kind of like in a math equation that X is the unknown.
Right.
Then it went to the NSX without a dash, and that's new sports experimental. Not sports car, new sports experimental.
Interesting.
So hopefully I got that right. There's a lot of mixed information on it, but yeah, it's kind of a... That's
cool. I wonder how many people know about that. That's kind of crazy to hear that it actually stands for something, because you would think it's just jumbled letters, put on a car. Yeah. And if you're interested in seeing weird cars and how this was made, look up the Honda HPX. Okay. Can't remember what that stood for right now. Something, I think, I don't know. I'm not going to even go there. It's a very weird car, but that was sort of, I don't know if I'd call that a prototype, but sort of the precursor to the NSX. So off camera, you were telling me that there's two different versions. There's an NA1 and an NA2, which, and if I remember correctly, when you were telling me, the difference between the two is like the different styles of front ends, where one of them has a pop-up lights and one of them doesn't. Was that correct, or was it something else?
Not exactly.
Okay, so tell the people what was different.
So that it's kind of hard to remember, but the NA1 and NA2 is based on the engine and transmission more than the body. Okay. So these were sold in the U.S. from 91 to 05, and if you have an automatic, it's an NA1. Doesn't matter what year. Okay. If you have a manual, a 91 to 96 is a 3-liter with a 5-speed, and that is an NA1.
Gotcha.
Okay? Has pop-up headlights.
And it doesn't matter what year.
What's that? That's a 91 to 95 is an NA1
gotcha.
manual.
Okay.
In 96. In 97, they started selling the NA2, which is a 3.2 liter, 6-speed.
Gotcha.
Still has pop-up headlights.
Wow.
Okay, so 2001, I believe, is the last year that you can get an NA2 with pop-up headlights.
Gotcha.
In 2002 through 2005, the NA2 has fixed headlights.
Okay.
Not pop-ups. So,
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. And one thing you were telling me too is this one specifically isn't considered a JDM car because it was made here in the U.S. Was that correct?
Yeah. So this is kind of a
touchy subject.
Touchy subject. Yeah. So a lot of people will call this JDM, but it's not. JDM is a car that was made for and sold in the Japanese market.
Right.
So almost always they should be right-hand drive.
Mm-hmm.
So any Japanese car sold in the U.S. is actually a USDM car.
Gotcha.
And it does play into or it becomes important when you are looking for parts. So sometimes you might say, like in the NSX forums, hey, I'm looking for JDM taillights.
Right.
Then you specifically know, oh, they want the different style taillights because there are some differences between the JDM and USDM models.
Gotcha. Interesting. So the JDM NSXs and the US-made NSXs, their parts aren't interchangeable, or they are?
Like 99% they are.
Okay.
But there's a few different things, like the taillights are a little different and different things.
Okay.
So outside of the US, this is actually a Honda.
Really?
So only in I believe it's only in the US it was an Acura.
Okay. So we also see that you have your hatch pop showing your engine. What's
Yep.
done to your engine?
Let's see. So this is going to be hard to explain, but this is the air filter in here. It does have a K&N. It's the later K&N. The early ones were kind of not good, actually, because it's a weird shape. Hard to explain. There is this intake here actually connects to this.
Okay.
For, I would assume, a forced air. So I have an aftermarket scoop that connects this directly to this without the baffle. There's some different seals here that I got from a guy out in I believe Florida. I'd have to look up the name. Something design. Otherwise, yeah, mostly just seals, all the VTEC seals, cams, spark plugs, all that stuff. One of the kind of weird, silly things is the early models actually had a fan inside of the engine bay. It's in here. So I took mine out because it's not necessary, and later cars didn't even come with it. What else? I've got so actually over near Portland, there's a place, CRF. Can't remember what that stands for either. I think it's Cedar Ridge Fabrication.
Okay.
So kind of funny that it's so close, but he makes a shield for the harmonic balancer.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So on these cars, they're not known for it, but it is a possibility that the harmonic balancer can kind of come apart, and if it does, it's going to eat into your timing belt, and then your engine's toast.
Oh.
So you either should get a kind of upgraded harmonic balancer, or get that shield, so that if it ever does split, it hits the shield instead of your timing belt.
Is that also is that known for both the NA1 and NA2, or is it just one specific
I believe
one?
it's both,
Okay.
but I'm not totally sure on that.
So he was just telling me we're at the front end now. This is the ABS out of the S2000 that he was talking about. So
yeah, the old one is quite large, and it's like a pressurization tank. It's not the greatest thing. And if I remember right, I think it weighs 17 pounds, and this one weighs like 5 pounds.
Oh, wow. So that's a big difference.
Yeah, significant difference there. But that's the main thing I've done here. Brake master cylinder, like I said, clutch master and slave. There's normally a spare tire in here, but I don't drive with one. And then I've got my NOCO wiring for my battery charging. As soon as I get home, I plug it in so that it's always getting trickle charged. I did drop this car a little bit. It's still on stock springs, but it's on Bilstein struts. So it's dropped about 3/4 of an inch. Aftermarket Anki wheels. So wheels are a little tricky to get for an NSX.
Really?
Because they are double offset, I think is the term.
Weird.
So these are 17s in the front and 18s in the back, and then the widths are different. So like trying to find wheels and tires that'll fit is a little tricky. Sorry,
Sweet.
Double staggered, not double offset.
Okay, double staggered.
Double
okay,
staggered.
Awesome. And are you running like any special exhaust, or is it stock exhaust?
No, so that's the next upgrade. I've been told specifically that the headers from the NA2 give you a pretty good significant boost in power. So I want to get headers, probably new cats and exhaust, and just do all of that at the same time. That's the next big project, but that's probably looking at like $5,000. So
that's not too bad. That's not too bad for an NSX. I mean, I'm sure there's probably more expensive options out there, but got to go with what is best.
Yeah.
How much power are you pushing to the wheels right now?
So I don't know. I haven't ever had a check, but these are known for having 270 horsepower.
Oh, it's not bad.
The automatics are less. I think they're like 250.
Okay.
No matter what year. And then the NA2s are, I believe, 290.
Okay.
Very reliable car is one of the main reasons why I bought it. Is I wanted a decently performing 90s car.
Right.
That was also very reliable. So it worked out perfect, and this has quite a bit of trunk space. So like my wife and I can throw suitcases in there and go on a trip to some fun place.
That's funny.
The only known issue on these, well, there's probably a few, but the main one is if you get a 91 or 92, you do need to be careful that there was a manufacturing problem with the transmissions. So some of them have issues. It's kind of a
hit or miss.
Yeah, so you may never see it, or maybe it happens at 100,000 miles, or maybe it happens at 20,000 miles. But it's called a snap ring.
Okay.
Just the tooling that they used was getting dull after I believe it was 5 uses, and they would keep swapping out the tool.
Jeez.
So if you had that 5th one, the tool was dull enough that it kind of caused some issues. But,
wow.
And but it's a pretty minor. Well, I don't know if minor is the right term, but you can go get it fixed ahead of time, or you can wait till it snaps. But I
wouldn't recommend waiting that long.
Yeah, but that's a reason why I went with the 93. I really like the 93 and 94 models because they are out of that snap ring issue.
Right.
So I didn't have to worry about that. And then these are one of the lighter cars.
Okay.
So some people like it, some people don't, but this does not have power steering.
Really?
Yeah, so I believe they started putting power steering in the 95s, 95 year. And then I think automatics maybe always had it, but I'm not totally sure on that. But yeah, I didn't want power steering. I don't really like power steering.
Okay.
And it really is only an issue in parking lots. It's a little hard to turn.
Right.
But otherwise, it feels great on the road. But yeah, super light. So in 95, they started... In the U.S., almost every NSX in the U.S. starting in 95 was a Targa top.
Okay.
So this is not. This is a coupe, and the coupes are lighter.
Gotcha.
So the Targas, to make up for the lack of rigidity, they had to add in a bunch of bracing, so they're a heavier car.
Right.
So 95, 96, they're a little heavier. 97, that's when they got the bump in performance.
Gotcha.
The NA2. So that was to make up for that extra weight.
That's interesting. Okay.
So I like the 93 and 94 models a lot, and then hopefully someday I'll get like a 97 to 01.
That would be cool.
Because I like the pop-ups better than the fixed headlights.
Right.
For me personally, and then having the extra power and the 6-speed would be cool. But
right. Yeah.
But they're a little bit more expensive.
I can imagine. I can imagine.
Yeah.
Well, with that being said, we're going to go for a ride. We're not going to do anything too crazy because it is a little bit wet and slick out. So without further ado, let's hop in and go for a little drive, you guys. So we were just talking. He was telling me that they designed it to make it look like kind of like a fighter jet. Talk more about that and tell the people what you were telling me.
Yeah, so in the design phase of the NSX, both the inside and outside of the car, they were taking cues from, I believe it was the F-16 fighter jet. It's one of the reasons why the I don't know if you call it cockpit or the roof of the car is black, to make it kind of look more like a cockpit of a jet. And then on the inside of the car, the stocks and stuff, you want to see here, like it looks like fighter jet stuff. Like this looks like a missile launcher to me. And everything is sort of in this wraparound, wrapping around the driver, sort of like a fighter jet would. I believe the taillights were also inspired by like a fighter jet engine.
Oh, and he was also telling me that there are supercharger kits available for these cars as well, and people will tend to more go the supercharger route than turbocharging them because the superchargers are more reliable. Is that what you were saying too?
I don't know about reliability between the two, but just I was saying I prefer the NA,
right?
Just for reliability. I don't want the extra hassle of dealing with stuff, and I don't mind the power that's in the car. It's not the fastest car in the world, compared to modern cars. It's on the slow end, I guess you might say, but it's plenty fast for me, and it curves in the mountains just beautifully. So
that's awesome.
But yeah, there have been, I think, a few examples of turbo, people that have turboed their NSXs, but you'll definitely see more supercharged, just because you can go get a kit and supercharge it.
So do you get a lot of thumbs up when you take it on the highways from like other people? Do you like get like, oh, that's a cool car or something like that?
Not a ton, but yeah.
That's funny.
But yeah, one of the running jokes, and this is probably similar for other cars, is it's not a chick magnet, it is definitely a dude magnet. We'll come out of a grocery store or something and it'll be like 10 guys standing around and checking it out.
That's so funny. We just went around some curves, and I was trying to say it feels like it wants to stay planted very, very well, and I'm assuming that they take corners at a pretty good speed, like they're made for that.
Yeah, so definitely a great track car. I have autocrossed it once. I am not an expert at autocrossing at all. It doesn't do that well autocrossing, but on the track it should do much better, but I haven't done that yet. It is very well known for its handling, but the one issue that people have with the USDM cars is the gearing.
Oh.
So the gearing on this car is so long. Here, let me show you here. So this is second gear. I'm doing 45 and 4,500 RPM. Like I can, in second gear, I think I can get this thing up to like 90 miles an hour.
Oh wow.
So what people do is the Japanese transmissions have a shorter second gear, if I understand correctly, to get a little bit more power out of second gear instead of making it such a long gear. So that's a common upgrade, well, semi-common upgrade that you'll see that people do.
Yeah, like you said, it's not the fastest car, but I can still feel it has the power and it wants to get up and go. So it still has the giddy up.
Yeah, and I'm not pushing it too hard just because the roads are wet and I'm driving on summer tires.
Right.
So yeah, compared to some modern car, this thing, it might not wow you.
Right. It's still a cool factor that, it's a car in this, era that still performs like almost like a modern car would.
Yeah, so when they made this car, they wanted to make something that could beat Ferrari. That was their goal, and they were successful.
Wow.
So when this was released, it was faster, I believe, than any Ferrari that you could buy
during the time.
A road car.
Right.
And it was, I think, like half the price of a Ferrari, and hell of a lot more reliable.
Okay.
Some of the complaints early on from Road and Track or whatever was that the NSX was too good of a car. Like, a lot of cars at the time had personality, meaning that they break down and you have to kind of deal with some of that stuff. So one of the nice things about owning an NSX is it is very reliable, and although it is more expensive to maintain than like a Civic, it's not anywhere near as expensive as a Ferrari or, you know, Lamborghini or something. And so that was part of why I wanted this car too, is I don't want to pay that Ferrari tax. Right.
Speaking of maintenance, how is finding parts for these cars? Is it pretty hard, or is it very easy to find?
I would say for the most part it's pretty easy. I'm used to weird cars. We have a Nissan Figaro, Subaru Sambar, classic Mini. The Mini is actually an easy car to get parts for too, but
okay.
But yeah, for the most part it's pretty easy. I get a lot of parts from Amayama. It's a company in Japan where you can order parts for just about any Japanese car, but what they do is they'll have all the parts listed and you'll say what you want and then they go find them for you.
Oh wow.
So like sometimes they might come back and say, oh sorry, we can't find that part, so they won't charge you for it.
Okay.
Kind of like Megazip. I think they do the same thing, but found that Amayama's prices are better than Megazip.
Okay.
But yeah, for the most part, it's pretty easy. One thing to note though is the car is almost entirely aluminum.
Oh wow.
The whole chassis, if you will, is all aluminum. Body's all aluminum, which was high tech at the time. But it is something to consider if you're, having to do repairs. If you get in an accident, it is not the easiest thing to replace, like body panels.
It's gonna be all crushed.
Yeah.
I guess that would make sense because if they're trying to make this car light as possible, aluminum is lighter than steel, so you would have the weight reduction in that aspect.
Yep.
So
yeah, this car, I'd have to look up the exact numbers, but I believe it weighs a little under 3 grand, 3,000 pounds. So
that's cool.
Pretty good power to weight ratio.
The more you know. That is so cool. Yeah, he was just telling me that this car has no computers helping him drive the car, and it's all, you said analog, is that correct?
Yeah, just, it's a very analog car. There's not computers doing much of anything, especially since I upgraded to the S2000 ABS. This has no traction control at all.
Wow.
So yeah, you need to be careful, like, going around spinning tires and stuff. Like, you're the one controlling it, so
right.
The car's not gonna help you spin out. Like,
right. Don't want to be a Mustang driver.
Yeah.
That's crazy. No, you were saying that the ABS system is a Honda S2000.
Yeah.
How hard was that was it a plug and play, or did you have to do some customization to make that work?
So it's mostly plug and play. So there's some different things. The S2000 modulator I bought used off eBay. It's from, you can find them that people test them before they sell them. And then the brake lines do need to be replaced that connect to it.
Okay.
You can get all of those you can either source them individually straight from Honda, or I bought an entire kit from a place in Japan called Mita, MITA. They sell you a kit. They also sell, so this company called Helix, I think it's Helix Auto Works, out of, I want to say, Maryland. They make a wiring harness that goes from the S2000 modulator to the NSX's ECU.
Oh wow.
So it is mostly plug and play, but I've been told that it takes about 8 hours to install everything if you've never done it before. Once you get it down, I think you can get it down to like 4 or 5 hours. But that's one of those things where I've never done it, and I wanted to defer to a professional.
Right.
So I took it up to Bellevue to Tamtech Auto, where he installed all that for me, and it worked great. The only problem we came across was, so the S2000s, to my understanding, their ECU and, I don't know, some sort of computer system within the interior of the car, or maybe it was in the ODB port, you can tell the ABS to go through a purging process.
Interesting.
Well, that doesn't exist on the NSX.
Right.
So we did have some trouble bleeding it after it was installed. So there's 2 tips to give on that is one, have the car running while you do the bleeding. Supposedly just that extra little bit of pressure helps pushing on the power, words escaping me, but the brake booster.
Okay.
And then the other thing I did was it happened to be raining at the time, so I just took it out in my neighborhood and would drive really fast, slam on the brakes, drive real fast, slam on the brakes.
Oh, gotcha.
Just to try and get the air to kind of get out of the new modulator.
Right.
And now the brakes are awesome.
That's good.
So,
sweet.
but yeah, it's disabled. You have to disable the traction control to install the S2000 version.
And I think you were telling me, and I think you may have gotten in the video, but once you disable it, it's disabled forever.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So you really have to be careful when after you disable it, you got to be mindful of how you drive, especially in the wet weather.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, another thing regarding the traction control is when I bought this car originally, it had 18-inch wheels in the front, 19s in the rear, which are pretty large for this car. For the traction control, it uses the speed of the wheels from front to rear.
Okay.
To determine if it needs to turn traction control on or not.
Interesting.
So the problem is if your wheel sizes front to back are not the perfect ratio, if I remember right, it's around 5% difference. I think you want to, it's somewhere around there. You'd have to look it up. But anyways, if the front wheels and the rear wheels are too similar in size, then the traction control will just turn on.
Weird.
Because it thinks that, something's going wrong and your wheels are not turning properly.
All right, so I just asked Nicholas if this car had cruise control, and he said it does, but he wanted me to get a clip of what he was wanting to say on how he fixed it. So what did you do?
Yeah, so I like using cruise control, especially on freeways, long trips, just cruise at one set speed. But I noticed in this car it didn't work very well. It would take 5 seconds or so to even engage, and it felt like it didn't really keep its speed very well. Like it would just kind of, it was just kind of sloppy, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to try and see, like, is there something wrong with it? And opened up the box in the front of the car, and couldn't really see anything. But I noticed that the gas pedal has 2 different cables, one that goes to the cruise control and one that goes to the engine. And I noticed the one that went to the engine when I was in the back of the car was really like sloppy, like it wasn't tight. And so what I figured out was that my accelerator cable was just, it was like sloppy. It wasn't tight enough.
Right.
So that was the whole problem with the cruise control. So in the rear, adjusted it, to where it was tight, but not to where it was affecting the idle speed. And so now the cruise control works beautifully. But the thing is, what I didn't realize was because of that slop, the car was actually not even performing as well as it could have.
Right.
And so after I got it tightened up, well, now I can actually get true like full throttle out of this thing. So like I got the benefit of like it being faster too.
Right. Wow.
So if you notice that problem with your car with cruise control, not working quite well enough, check that out. See if the cable's just loose.
Interesting. Well, there you go. There's a tip for all you guys. If you want to see if you can get a little more power, check your cruise control stuff. All right, you guys, we have made it back. Nicholas, thank you so much. That was a ton of fun. He does have an Instagram. Nicholas, what's your Instagram?
It's D2D Dad. So
okay.
Like day-to-day dad is what I go by.
Yeah, I'll pop the screenshot up for you guys. Is there anything else you want to say to the people before we end the video?
I just hope I didn't make any mistakes on things I said about the car, because there is a lot of little things. And I'll often hear mistakes in other NSX videos, and that's normal, So yeah, if there's anything like I said that was wrong, definitely tell me, because I want to know what the right thing is. And then if you're local here in the Vancouver, Washington area, I put on a show last year in August called Vintage.
Okay.
And it's for vintage Japanese cars.
Sweet.
So they had to be 30 years old. And we were going for more of a like stock or even period correct upgrades, as opposed to like the hot import nights with you know, the fancy stuff with the lights and all that. We wanted more like daily driver, like you know, just some regular like, you know, 1990 whatever. So hoping to do that again this year.
Sweet.
So keep track of that if anyone has an old Japanese car.
Yeah, definitely.
But we're definitely more interested in seeing like just a regular everyday car.
For sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Nick, thank you again, and you guys, hopefully you enjoyed the video, and make sure you leave a like and subscribe, and go check them out on Instagram. So with that being said, I'll catch you guys in the next video.